what happened when doing the mapping and the chart for this person, I started to get a blood nose and all different physical symptoms, a very dry mouth, feeling like there's dirt and a scratchy feeling in my throat. So you'll hear that, and I just wanted to let you know because I note when my body reacts to certain things, and I absolutely am feeling a little bit strange after doing this reading. A bike is transport and is represented by Mercury. Mercury is in the 8th house, and it's making an exact square to this Mars. So that to me is almost like the staging of a bicycle to allude to the fact that there is a kidnapping.
Hello everyone, it's me Kirsty, you know me. I'm looking at SUZANNE Morphew today. Well, I think yesterday, maybe a little while ago, it was the end of day 3 for the search for SUZANNE Morphew. Now a whole bunch of things have happened, and I'm going to go through all of those things as I discuss this chart here. Now the chart I'm using is the 911 chart. That's the one that I've decided upon. Now I will say instantly that a dog has hit off in an area of where Barry Morphew was doing landscaping in a pool type of area where there's rocks. Now what I wanted to do was to go through the chart. Sorry about the birds in the background, it's that time of night. I'm going to go through the 911 chart roughly 6 o'clock on the 10th of May when SUZANNE went missing, and we're going to see if we can pull up some different keywords and different things that show us perhaps a little closer where they should be looking, and hopefully somebody may watch this and pass it on, or it could get passed on. And I have passed information on to Profiling Evil. Everyone that's watching and that knows the case will know that they, oh my goodness, they are doing such a good job. And I haven't seen a search like this ever, to be honest. Andy Mormon is absolutely going to find his sister. Now let's have a look at this chart and see what we can see. Okay, so let's just get directly into where we're looking. The ruler of the ascendant is, that's SUZANNE, Venus at 21 degrees of Gemini. It's in the 8th house of death. The ruler of a possible perpetrator is here. That is Mars. Mars is in the 4th house of the home, and it is making an aspect, if I can draw it, a trine which is 120 degrees to each other. So we've got Venus, SUZANNE, Mars, the perpetrator. What does Venus and Mars usually represent? A relationship. Okay, we're going to look at where Mars is, and we're going to look at where Saturn is, because that's our physical body. We're going to look at the moon, and we're going to look at Venus. See if we can determine some areas to narrow down where they're looking. Okay, so Saturn here is the physical body, and it's located right on the IC, which is the end of the matter, or the womb and the tomb. It's at 1 degree of Aquarius, and Mars is at 28 degrees of Aquarius. So what does Aquarius represent? What can that show us about where SUZANNE might be? Now I'm reading from my book of rulerships here. This is Aquarius, things that are ruled by Aquarius. Architecture, modern architecture. Automobile manufacturers, mechanics, cars. Aviation, batteries, birds, blood circulation, blood disorders, blood found in water, the circulation of blood. I'm going to go through and find things that are relative, obviously. Electricians, electrical engineering, any electrical type of appliances, electronic devices. Engineers again. Distribution of fluids of the body. It's a very repetitive thing. Distribution of fluids in the body in water. It shows fractures of ankles, heart weakness, irregularities of the heart. January, the month of January. Land that has been reclaimed or changed from agricultural to residential. Okay, that's important. Land that has been reclaimed or changed from agricultural to residential. Now, I don't know all these areas, but I know you guys do. Lead. Lead is represented by Aquarius. Heavy lead. The lower half of the legs. Motors. Near cars, near vehicles. We've got a lot of automotive stuff going on here. And also this whole bunch of planets here in the third house is very representative of vehicles and automotives. Oil and oil wells, oil fields, oil tanks is another thing. Opals. I'm just saying words. Let's see what sticks, see what happens. Stone. Sodium chloride. Southeast positioning. Okay, so her IC is 2 degrees of Aquarius. That's southeast. So where they're looking at the moment here, it's 2 degrees 14. Now if we use Saturn as her body as mileage, we can go out 11.5, about 12 miles, and that's where they're looking at the moment. Okay, what else do we have? Telephones, teeth, stairways in houses. Thinking ahead. That's a big one, actually. Advanced thought. Violet, the colour violet. Vines and vineyards. Water distribution, once again, where there's a lapping of waves. We're moving up to Venus at 21 degrees of Gemini. Get this, everybody. Gemini literally represents Arkansas, the Arkansas River. I'm going to show you that here. Okay, so we need to get closer to that river, I think. Now, Gemini as well. Oh, it's an indication of so many things. Bicycles is one of them. Bicycling is one of them. So being told that she was bicycling, it fits. It doesn't fit with the truth, but it fits with the story that we were told. Birch trees, small birds, butterflies, pillared buildings, chests of drawers with doors. Now this is this area here. Whoop, this whole 8th house here, which is actually a segment there. So this is what I'm talking about here, okay? The 8th house. And Venus, which is Suzanne. Two different locations. That's a big one. We have counties, neighbouring counties, surrounding counties. conversation, corridors. Okay, now I actually could see, and I think a few people have seen, it's like she's been backed into her bedroom, backed into a bathroom, backed in through a corridor. She's going back and back and back. She's, you know, physically we can see her going backwards. And this is the corridor, this going down the corridor. It shows desks and doorways, hilly ground, barren hills and hilly ground or hilly places. May, the month of May. Okay, obviously she disappeared in May. May is ruled by Gemini. So perhaps we're going to see that she'll actually be found in January. I know we want her found in the next 3 days. Today, yesterday, but maybe January. Alright, so over here on the left I have a chart set up for tomorrow, what your America's tomorrow, Sunday the 27th of September. The next search 5 a.m. because that's when everything gets set up. And then we have over here the 911 call at 6 o'clock on the 10th of May with Barry Morphew's natal chart on the outside. So what I'm going to do is have a look at this chart tomorrow and see if I can see that something's going to happen. Are we going to find out more? Are the dogs going to hit on something? We found out a lot today. There's been 3 hits from dogs. We know about one of them, which is on the beach in the area where Barry Morphew was working. It's not a beach, it's the Arkansas River and then rocks leading down to the water. So it's not actually a beach, but I understand why it's called a beach, because it's like a little beach area in the river. Anyway, 2 other dogs hit on a spot that we haven't been told about. So dogs are especially important at the moment. And if you've been watching all of my SUZANNE Morphew videos, you'll know that I've said that they need to bring those dogs in. So I'm so glad that Andy has brought the dogs in, and seeing the picture of him with the dog, oh, made me cry. I cry every time I see Andy. What a man. Okay, so there's a few really interesting things here. From what I showed you before, when Suzanne went missing, she's represented by Venus. Okay, Venus is here, so she's over here, Venus. Now, in between her going missing and then another chart that I did in July to have a look at it, Venus actually went retrograde. So when Venus is in Gemini and then goes retrograde, it seems that that's probably the period of time that a person may be moved. So I think it's possible that she was moved around the 10th, 11th of July. And I do think she was moved. And I think that he watches this. Not my videos in particular, but I think he probably watches a lot of stuff on YouTube. And I think a lot of people do now. So another thing I'm going to be doing is not putting up maps anymore. I can't do it. I can't give anybody a heads up. And I really advise maybe to all the wonderful psychics and astrologers and mediums and tarot readers out there that are helping with true crime, maybe we should keep it to a minimum, giving information out, and then just give it straight to the people that need that information. So I've learned a lot through everything from Gannon to Tylee JJ to this case. So many things have shown me that it's important to keep a lot of things close to your chest. People move other people. People watch YouTube. People watch the news. They look at Facebook. They join Facebook groups. I have no doubt about it. So my thinking is that she was moved roughly July 10, July 11. So I'm not sure what he was doing on that day, on those days. I'm sure somebody else may be able to figure that out. Alright, so what's tomorrow going to hold? Now this chart is interesting. I'll just grab my pen here. So we're not looking at Suzanne here and a perpetrator here. This chart is specifically for search day. What's going to happen tomorrow during the whole day? So the ascendant gives us the flavour of the day. At 5 a.m. when the search begins, when they all get together and Andy tells everybody where to go, etc., we have Virgo on the rise, Virgo rising, which means that Mercury is the ruler of the day. Okay, now this is great news. So we have Virgo, Mercury, right on the cusp of the third house as well, which is a Mercury house. We have DNA, the asteroid, in the house where Mercury usually resides. The midheaven, which is what we see in the public, so what us mere public get to see and what we're privy to, is Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So everything here is pointing to Mercury, and Mercury rules over dogs. Cadaver dogs, so cadavers are ruled by Saturn and Pluto, mainly Saturn because that's the body, and Mercury is the dogs. So cadaver dogs are represented by Saturn, Pluto and Mercury. Now, amazingly, and thank God, Saturn is stationing up to go direct from being retrograde over the next few days. So there's activity there with the cadaver. The dogs is in the second house of missing people. It's at 0 degrees of Scorpio. It is going to sniff out something, I can assure you. That dog is picking up on something important. Well, one of 3 dogs. It's at 0 degrees. It's the beginning of a new phase of what's happening. So something that is also interesting when we look at Venus here, which was the ruler of Suzanne in all of the other charts, it's now at 23 degrees, so just 2 degrees further, but in Leo. And if we go back to the 911 chart, Leo is completely encapsulated in that 10th house of the public. So if we were to superimpose Venus from here over onto this 911 chart, that puts Suzanne in the public eye. So it works perfectly. This over to here. Now there's something else. I'm going to show you this. Over here is the 911 chart, and the ruler of the suspect is Mars. Is at 25 degrees of Aries, and Mars was the ruler. I've discussed that quite a few times. Now if we go over to this chart here, let's have a look at where Mars is. It is at 25 degrees of Aries in the 8th house of death. That's a good sign. That shows us that the perpetrator is right there tomorrow, exactly where it was on the 911 call, but in the 8th house of death. So it's almost, you could read that as we're going to find out more about the death of Suzanne and more about the person that did something to her. Something that I am a little concerned about is seeing this Mars retrograde in the 8th house. I think that the perpetrator is unstable. So I really, really hope that the FBI or the police, CBI, whoever, is keeping an eye on Mr. Morphew. There's something else that's interesting as well. This chart over here is the 911 on the inside with Barry Morphew on the outside. Now his Venus is in Virgo at 9 degrees. Now the search tomorrow, say Andy got there at 4:55 a.m. and set up. That's exactly where that would be. 9 degrees of Virgo. So we've got, so Barry has Jupiter in Leo, Venus in Virgo, Pluto in Virgo, and Uranus in Virgo. And then over here, in tomorrow's search, all of his planets will be around this area here. Not all of his planets, obviously, but this bunch here. So it was in the 11th house of hopes and dreams before, so almost like he's hoping and dreaming that a new life will happen. Now, if we superimpose these planets over onto this chart tomorrow, there's no hopes and dreams. It's all very, very real. I think we're going to find out a lot more tomorrow. Barry has his sun at 23 degrees of Libra. So his sun just pops in just here, just before these dogs. That's his sun there. Wonky old sun. So his sun is conjunct the Mercury, which is the dogs. It's also forming a square to the cadaver. So it seems to me like this is the end of the line for Barry by the end of tomorrow. I'd be very surprised if it's not the beginning of the end for Mr. Morphew. So what else are we going to see tomorrow? Now, if this is to be taken as an opposing party to the search, then it means that we're going to find out about a few more lies. Now, the modern ruler of Pisces is Neptune, but the traditional ruler is Jupiter. And Jupiter sits right down here next to these cadaver dog areas. Jupiter's right there. So it's almost like Barry is going to be ahead of everything tomorrow. He might even pop up again. Like, just when they don't expect him, he's going to pop up. Right around the time when the dogs are doing their thing, or right around the time when something's about to happen, that man's going to be there. It was the same thing when that other crazy dude, what's his name, Chad Daybell, he was right there when they were digging up the children. It's just virtually the same scenario that I'm looking at here. He's going to be standing there, and then he'll get in a car. I'm hoping that this is the case. It looks a lot like it. He'll jump in a car and off he goes. Question time. Or runaway time, one or the other. Searches themselves are actually represented by Uranus, and it's in the 9th house and Taurus. So we're going a little bit further out, I think. Now, I don't know that because I don't know where they're going to search today, but according to the chart, they'll be going further out on lower ground. So while we're spotting similarities, let's have a look at this. Barry Morphew, his Saturn, natally retrograde and at 7 degrees of Aries, conjunct Chiron at the time of the 911 call, still conjunct Chiron because it's still at 7 degrees. It's gone retrograde. See, it wasn't retrograde then, and so it was moving forward, and then in that meantime it's moving backwards again. And look at it, it's heading back into the 7th house. Here it's heading towards the 7th house in Aries there. Now it's in the 8th house, on the cusp. So Barry's Saturn at 7 degrees sits right here on the 8th house of death as well. This is the really interesting point in astrology that you get to and go, okay, what's going to happen here? Are we going to see that Barry Morphew is going to be uncovered as the perpetrator of this crime? Or is Barry Morphew going to do something to himself? His Saturn, which is, you know, Saturn's father time. When your time's up, Saturn's the one that comes into play. Saturn's sitting here on this 8th house tomorrow in the morning. So I expect that we're going to see Barry tomorrow in some capacity. If nobody sees him or hears from him or knows what's going on with him, I'd actually be concerned. I have a horrible feeling that this may be pointing towards the fact that he is not going to be around to give answers. Now, I hope that's not the case. I hope I'm completely wrong, and that this just shows us that there is going to be answers, and it's going to be pointing to him. I personally think that that's probably more the case. I don't really like seeing this Mars at 25 degrees of Aries, considering that's the suspect in the 8th house of death. So the perpetrator, the suspect, is in the house of death. So I'll let you sort of think about that one as well and do your own little interpretation. Who's dying? Who died? What does that mean? Are we going to figure this out tomorrow? It's possible. Another very interesting aspect is Saturn, the cadaver. Saturn is the body. At 25 degrees of Capricorn, is stationing up but making a square to this retrograde Mars in the 8th house here. So it's all connecting, the dots are connecting, and it seems like tomorrow a lot more information is going to come out, and it's not going to be good for Barry. I hate to say that to people that think that he didn't do anything. I'm sorry, but it really looks like he did. Now, his Mars is at 26 degrees of Sagittarius here. I just noticed that. The end of the matter is Sagittarius, so that puts his Mars in the 4th house, which is exactly where Mars is in the original 911 chart, in the 4th house. So it's all coming back full circle tomorrow. Just out of interest, we're going to flick back a day and see what today shows us, now that we know what happened today. On the right side here we've got today, so day 3 search. Now grab the pen. Now let's have a look at this again. 9 degrees Virgo. So there we go, there's Barry Morphew's Venus. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in the same place, but at 29 degrees. We know what that means. Pivotal stuff. So they found really interesting, pivotal, important things today. And obviously they used a dog. They got 3 dog hits. That's this here. Now, what's really interesting is now at 29 degrees, that's making a square to these planets here. I mean, it is tomorrow too at 0 degrees, but it's an out of sign square. Now we have an in sign square between the cadaver dog. And then we have the moon right there in front of it, and the moon is the water. Moon is a little pond, man-made area of water on the edge of a river. So we've got this whole area here aspecting the dog's DNA again in the 3rd house, but at 9 degrees, opposing Uranus at 10, the part of fortune at 10 degrees. We've got really close aspects here. Usually we don't use oppositions with asteroids, by the way. I'm using DNA frivolously here, but why not? Let's see what it brings. 9 degree ascendant and 9 degree DNA. That's 60 degree angle between both of those. So that's a big tick as well. So no wonder today was successful. Again, the public found out information because of the dog hit. Mercury, Gemini, Virgo. We found out that there's lies again. And we found out things that we didn't know before. So we saw photographs, which is Neptune. We saw photos of Barry laying on the ground. Because Mars is retrograde, yesterday it was at 26 degrees. Tomorrow's search, or today, the search is at 25, exactly where that Perpetrator is. So he's just out of the loop today. But you know what as well? When Mars is in Aries, that's somebody holding a shotgun. So there he stands firmly in that 8th house, defending his property, which is the 8th house as well. It's not even his property, it's somebody else's. Suzanne, I think, probably owned more of that house than he did. That's the 8th house. So there stands Barry with his shotgun on his shoulder, not letting anybody in. We go to the 911 chart, and that Mars is the Perpetrator, 25 degrees of Aries. Here, 25 degrees. So he can stand there with this shotgun again, but this time it's just getting too close. A cadaver dog will hit on something tomorrow. His goose is cooked. Okay, guys. I want to thank you so much for all your prayers. I have been going through a hard time, but I'm going to try and do as much as I can still. So just before I go, I wanted to show the area where they're searching. Now, I found this through various photos. I found this fence, this patch here, and this patch here, and then that was the area right across the road from the patch of empty dirt here. There's the beach there. So I'm not sure who wanted that, why it came about. I don't know. This is obviously old, but that's where this area is. I know that I don't think a lot of people know where it is, but it backs right onto this Arkansas River here. And I'll show you. Oh, there we go. This is the house here. It's hard to see, but the patch of dirt is just there, and then there's a fence there and there. So we've got the area here, the little beach right here. So that's here on the map. It's roughly 14 miles away from where she disappeared, and it is in the position of about 6 degrees of Cancer. So when we look at the charts, so tomorrow's one, 6 degrees of Cancer, is in the 10th house in here, so in the public. So it's very, very possible that she'll be found, or something of hers or something will be discovered tomorrow. Now, of course, the searches, here, the planets don't move that quickly. So the only thing that's going to move quickly with this search is the moon. We're going to have a retrograde turn into a station, turn into a direct. We're going to have movement of the houses around the outside, but generally we're going to have the similar placements for the next few days. So what I would expect to see at the end of this, when the result is determined, and it will be, 6 degrees of Cancer is going to be a very, very pivotal position. It'll probably be on the ascendant or the descendant. And being 6 degrees of Cancer location wise, it's quite interesting astrologically, because Cancer is home. And this isn't at home, but it's the second home. It's the second area. You know, it's been looked already. They've already searched it. Obviously they're going to be searching it again. I also believe that they need to search the house again as well. The dogs need to go back there. So hopefully the FBI, the CBI, whoever, maybe if the warrant comes through, or I don't really know the process, but let's just hope that that warrant can go boop over to here. Because I really think that it's important that this whole 7 acres of his land is searched as well. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, guys. I will update as we go. Hopefully tomorrow's going to be the beginning of the end. I really think that Andy, the guys from Profiling Evil, everybody has come together so well in this. It's probably one of the best searches I've seen. Suzanne is loved so much, and there'll be answers. There will be answers, and somebody will be paying for what they've done. But Andy's not going to give up. And he'll be the one that, sadly, I do believe that he'll be the one that finds her. So when I see the picture of him with the dog, it's very triggering, and I can feel it, that he's close. And I remember when I first did these readings, I felt like my throat was so full of sand. It makes sense. Bye, guys.